Equilter.com.
Well, Luana Rubin is here with me now. Welcome.
Thank you.
And you've been on Quilting Arts before.
Happily. Yes.
And you love to talk about color. Tell us about that.
Oh gosh, I'm part of the color marketing group, and I've been doing color forecasting for over 30 years.
Wow.
And I just love to come and share that with you.
Well, then you are in the right industry. Let's talk about some of these fabrics that you brought with you. Brought a variety of fabrics here today. So tell us about some of these fabrics that are in front of me.
Yeah, I wanted to share these gorgeous fabrics that are coming out, really illustrating this growing trend of Bollywood's influence.
So we're going to share a couple trends, and that's the first trend is the Bollywood?
And then we'll talk about this urban city art trend.
So explain Bollywood, because I know what it is, but some of our viewers may not know about Bollywood.
Well, Bollywood is the Indian version of Hollywood, Indian as in India, on the other side of the continent. And the movies are full of costumes and fabrics and color and rich, opulent jewelry, and that's really expressed in these fabrics.
And you can see that in these fabrics on the table. So tell me a little bit about them.
Well, the peacocks have been a very strong trend, and what I really love about the peacock story is that they're a very auspicious symbol in India and really in Southeast Asia. They represent long life and protection. And so the image is often displayed in the home to protect the home or the occupants. Okay.
And this is just such an opulent looking piece of fabric, because you don't just have the peacock, but it almost looks collaged with some text behind here, and lots of swirly things, and very rich looking. And so that's complemented by some of these other fabrics that have just very intricate designs, and these are still in that Bollywood trend.
Right. You can really see the colors that come out in the costumes of the movies.
Now, do you see a lot of metallics oftentimes in these fabrics?
In this trend you do. I think in the quilt industry it's not as common, but you really have to have the gold opulence in this particular trend. It really makes it sparkle.
And some of these other fabrics are kind of echoing this peacock motif. Talk to me about, for instance, this fabric here.
Right. Well, that's another twist on it. That's in a more tonal blue and white, maybe a more classic type of representation. We also see peacock feathers, both realistic and stylized. And then the paisley,
more abstract interpretation of it.
And then, paisleys have been such a strong influence, and that's really evolved from that gypsy boho trend that was happening for the last several years, and that's evolving into this type of thing.
And tell us a little bit about these fabrics here.
And those are panels, and so you can cut them up and make them into quilts, or you can cut them up even further and make them into garments. But they're really just following that same trend. This was actually done by an Australian artist.
Oh,
She's a little bit closer to the source. And then you have like a repeating sort of tile or bead-like fabric over here. And there's the paisley influence.
Okay, and so some of these fabrics, you don't necessarily have to quilt with them. You can use them in garments and a variety of things.
I think, table toppers.
Table runners would be great.
Exactly.
Okay, and tell us about this piece here. Is this with this trend here?
Well, this is with the next trend.
Okay, let's take a look at them.
Okay, and so this trend is really about the evolution of graffiti and urban art, and those artists now are becoming full-fledged artists who are showing in galleries and having their work reproduced on products. And so, the bright color story here really mimics the graffiti that we've seen on the street. It used to be maybe at a construction site, you'd see this huge multicolor graffiti piece of artwork. And then this group over here really shows the kind of the textures and the symbols of the city.
Well, I realized as we were going across the table, this piece here, I really thought it had to do more with the peacock story.
Well,
but it almost seems to blend the two.
Yeah, well, that's why I put it here, because it's kind of a bridge piece, don't you think? This little circular design here leads us right into the story. But as you look closely, I mean, these are drips and spatters, and that's really more of a rough, edgy kind
Yeah, these
of
are
look.
like paint splattered fabrics almost.
Right.
And then this piece here, more of that kind of really graffiti look. I love this fish piece, with the big buggy eyes. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
So tell us a little bit about this color scheme here.
Well, these are some of those bright primaries that you see on the street as graffiti art. And you know, here you can see this is kind of a digital rendition of that, where maybe someone splattered paint and then made it into a kaleidoscope by repeating it. And this is more of an abstract, just spatters of black on a real textured, almost marble or stone-like background.
Well, I'm curious about those two batiks you have there, because tell me how the graffiti influence has affected some of the batik motifs.
Well, this is more of, you know, the mid-century modern is a very strong influence going forward, and that's that 50s look, right? That's come from Mad Men and Pan Am.
Yes.
And so these kind of geometric shapes show up from the 50s and early 60s. And I picked these out just to show that it's not just prints, it's actually batiks, and here are hand-dyes. This is a striped hand-dye that can coordinate with these kind of fabrics.
And talk about this one. That one looks very, very bold, the red and the...
Right. Yeah, this is funny. This, if you cut it up, you wouldn't know what it was, but it's actually motorbikes.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, now I see it. Okay.
It's
very cool.
Bikes and
then
spray painted
some of these,
behind.
and then some of these pieces up here, it's kind of a blend of the very graffiti look, but almost brought to a more modern and contemporary look.
Exactly.
And how do you use? How are people using these fabrics in their quilting? Have you seen many quilts with them?
Well, I think it's obviously a very different kind of color scheme or approach. I think having a shot of color, like a shot of red or a shot of taxicab yellow, will bring those muted colors or black and white graphic colors to life.
So, have you seen people interpreting these trends in their quilting?
These are brand new. Some of these haven't even hit the quilt shops yet. So I'm giving you like a sneak peek of things that, that haven't come in yet.
Well, we like that here at Quilting Arts, that's for sure.
Exactly.
And tell us about some of the monotone, monochromatic pieces on the corner of the table.
Okay. Well, those are great for cutting up and just piecing in. I mean, it looks like a scribble. It looks like what some of your other artists here have done, making marks on fabric. Except
very simple, bold. Marks, yeah.
Right, reproduced on commercial fabric. And actually, this is another thing, a lot of artists who are making marks on fabric and stamping and printing now, their work is being reproduced and sold commercially.
Yeah, that is so exciting.
And that's what we see here.
So how do you anticipate people will be using these fabrics if they haven't been using them yet?
Right. I think that they're going to be making quilts. For instance, this will be cut up into blocks. And I think that there's a big trend of large scale and sort of mixed up prints being cut up in very abstract ways, you know, not a fussy cut flower or a fussy cut peacock, but in this case, just kind of randomly cut up and put together in a very modern way that doesn't represent anything, but that's more evoking a feeling.
Well, tell us about that batik right there, because that is gorgeous.
This one right here?
Yes.
Okay. This one has a real interesting kind of rough texture. It looks like maybe tire tracks or some other kind of vehicle has rolled over it. And it really goes with a lot of these things. It's a little bit geometric, it's a little bit batik, a bridge piece, I think.
I love those three fabrics there.
Yes.
Those are just gorgeous.
Yeah, and that's another of that city influence.
Kind of like an urban feel to it.
And I think, you know, prints that represent in kind of a stylized or abstract way the city itself, because so many people are moving to the cities, so that's driving the trend as well.
And, you know, something that's very popular in art quilting is thread sketching. Just really treating thread as a drawing tool with very, very bold, simple designs, reinterpreting photographs. And that fabric kind of seems to echo that trend.
It really does.
Well, these are two very, very fun trends. So do you anticipate any future trends? If I could get into your head and see what future trends would be in fabric, what would you guess?
Well, I'm thinking about colors for the future, and we've just gone through a cycle of dark and intense colors, and we're coming out into lighter colors. So I'm actually looking for chalky pastels, and I'm looking for midtones that are a little bit misty. And then in terms of how they're being used, I think the collage trend that's been going on, these things are going to be layered and collaged. Just
fantastic.
A continuation of what you've been talking about, too.
Thank you so much for coming, Luana.
You're so welcome.